Eugenie Sage.
Chair, thank you. Mr Chair, like others, this bill is a nonsense. It's an abominable piece of legislation and the Parliament should be ashamed of passing it, because representative democracy is a fundamental principle that gives legitimacy to the government, to the exercise of our state power, and yet in this bill it totally undermines it. So a better title would be the Suppression of Local Democracy Bill, or the Strong Arm of the State Bill, because this government, through this bill, shows that it doesn't trust the citizens of Canterbury to elect a competent regional council. Another title would be Ignore the Public Bill, because remember, it was only 15 of 1,169 submissions that supported this bill. There was strong public opposition. That opposition to the axing of elected councillors has been expressed in many ways in Canterbury. One of them is that cairn of stones, which I and many others took stones from the beds of Canterbury rivers, added to them to the cairn. The cairn stood there through all of the Canterbury earthquakes while Godley and other statues fell over. The cairn remains a symbol of the loss of democracy in Canterbury, of the taking of water, of the putting irrigation and the expansion of irrigated land ahead of protecting the health of Canterbury's rivers and aquifers. Mr Chair, this bill is an affront to democracy. We can't claim to be a free and democratic society if we compromise with this second-class model where ministers continue to appoint commissioners and where the bill truncates appeal rights and sidelines the specialist jurisdiction of the Environment Court in terms of making decisions on appeals on regional plans and the regional policy statement. It is an affront to democracy bill because it imposes in Canterbury a different form of law to that which applies in other regions by truncating these appeal rights. It's a model which isn't accountable because nearly half of those sitting around the table will be reporting to the Minister rather than to Cantabrians. And it is a Wellington-controlled model, plain and simple. So that's another title, the Wellington-controlled Council Bill. And it's certainly not a transitional governance arrangement because we are about to mourn the 6th anniversary of the loss of an elected council, and by the time this bill is repealed, there will have been 9 long years without a fully elected council. So, as the Christchurch City Council highlighted in its submission, it was very concerned that this hybrid model would reduce effective, open and transparent processes rather than providing the stability that the government claims. So we've seen a precedent being set here with the government interfering with the processes and decision-making of local councils through being able to appoint more commissioners. Nobody wants this as a precedent. Local Government New Zealand expressed significant concern about the bill. And they said, and I'd like to conclude with a quote from their submission, that they highlighted that local government representatives should not be required to have specialist expertise or skills. Rather, their role is to set the direction, resolve differences over values, set priorities, and most of all, to supervise management. That is what local government and local democracy is all about. It's about people electing councillors who can make decisions on how the taxes that they contribute through rates are actually spent. It's about being accountable to local communities. This bill, by imposing government appointees on Cantabrians, totally distrusts local government. It highlights once again the government's failure to respect the ability of Cantabrians to elect competent people. It gives greater weight to voters in rural areas by giving them better representation, and I totally endorse the point that Dennis O'Rourke was making in terms of having this appointed members actually setting the representation for the council post-2019. That, like the provisions around the plans, will continue the influence of the government and the influence of appointed members well beyond 2019. That is a total distasteful element of this bill, which is an abominable piece of legislation which the Green Party will continue to oppose.